Good morning and good afternoon to everyone that's attending this webinar on our TRACC software. My name is Lester Chine. I'm a business development manager here at Basemap, and I'm going to run through some case studies and a quick demo of our TRACC software. It's good to see so many people on the actual webinar itself. We are going to record this webinar for two reasons. One, obviously for training purposes, and secondly, so that if anyone wants a copy of the webinar at the end, then I am more than happy to send that through. I think we've got virtually everybody that had signed up to the webinar here. So without further ado, here we go. So, a little bit about TRACC. Basemap was founded in 2000 and TRACC was developed over a number of years and released in 2013. So it's essentially a desktop software, and it's capable of undertaking very large origin to destination calculations. In fact, it can do many millions of calculations. For example, access to all employment centres as an example. It's used all over the world, so can use all formats of public transport data, road data, and multiple sort of map projections. And it's quick and easy to visualize the outputs of TRACC because of the way it's been designed in terms of its multimodal capacity. So it is in effect a multimodal travel, transit, and accessibility tool. And it can produce accurate and reliable maps. It can also get down into the nitty-gritty and provide fine detail if that is required. The walking elements are calculated using the digitized road network, so they are realistic when looking at journey planning. And you can even get the full origin to destination path report, which would include all the constituent parts of a journey from someone's front door to perhaps a place of work or recreation. And because of the standardized methodology within the software, then it's very good at standing up to public inquiry because of the way in which obviously it performs the task that it's really good at. I would say some of the biggest features of, I'm just trying to get the next slide, please bear with me. Seems not to be playing ball. Just bear with me. There we go. Got to go back one. That's it. So it can do CSV outputs, it can do shapefiles, contour maps, and all of these are exportable into other GIS tools. One of the things that we've certainly done in the UK, because it's something that I think has touched the lives of almost everybody, is the coronavirus. And we've worked alongside our NHS and other bodies to sort of use TRACC to model some of the accessibility to testing centres. If you look at the map on the right, that's all the testing centres that were set up for coronavirus testing. And we did an exercise of working out people's drive times within an hour to each of the testing centres. And so this map shows a visualisation of sort of where the gaps are, so that more local plans can be put in place if people can't reach one of these testing centres. And on the right, a slightly more local version where we're looking at access to pharmacies for people that live in this particular area of Kingston upon Hull. And again, that allows local authorities to be able to plan to meet the needs of those who are obviously shielding or require extra support during the pandemic. So it's been a really useful tool for them to support people in this terrible disease that's going around the world. One of the case studies, one of our TRACC users is the East-West Gateway in St. Louis. They're responsible for around sort of 3 million people. And they wanted to look at travel times to key destinations. Historically, they'd only looked at travel times and nothing else. But they wanted to try and build greater granularity and to give them more detailed answers. So they wanted to build an accessibility score. So they used our TRACC software using census blocks to POIs and looked at the transit times for walking and public transport. And effectively using these POIs, which were grouped into 8 different types of POIs, they also added in a scoring element, which was achieved by applying a weighting based on the number of points of interest that each census block could access within 40 minutes walk or 60 minutes using public transport. And by doing that, what they were able to then do is give it a score where a 0 was low and 1 was high. And that index would then allow them to look at the results in more detail. And the results were pretty stark. It clearly showed how those that were in poor areas with limited or no access to a car were adversely affected by the lack of infrastructure in terms of public transport. And then they were able to produce heat maps from the results to build a real detailed picture that could help them inform sort of decisions on future transit strategy. And so they've now in the process of working through that and trying to improve public transport and accessibility to the key things that people need day in, day out. OC Transpo in Canada, their operational network design team had used software in the past to look at trying to model the impacts of a hugely ambitious Confederation line, a light rail line. The previous software they used was rather slow to run the calculations they needed. It needed a lot more resource to deliver the results they need, and therefore they were unable to properly interrogate the schedules, and it became really cumbersome. And they wanted to be able to identify gaps in the transit network and provide better connections with urban and suburban neighbourhoods and employment centres. But also, more, as important, if not more importantly, was emergency planning. If the Confederation line goes down, they needed to be able to model the most efficient rail replacement. And this is where TRACC's ability to be able to edit the public transport network allows them then to run what-if scenarios to look at the most efficient way in which that should that go down, that people can access the transport hubs, and they wanted to get to a point where 95% of the population needed to be 400 metres peak and 800 metres off peak from a stop. And that gave them an increase after doing the work in TRACC of more than 100,000 people being able to get access to stops if the line went down. It also meant that improved accessibility to certain areas where they were able to measure the impact of the West Transitway extension. So this was part of the Confederation line. And this map just shows that the improvement to a particular campus with regards to people's accessibility. And it's now given them a platform and a basis where they can respond quickly to any inquiries or problems that occur from a number of interested bodies with regards to routes, levels of service, and amendments to sort of bus stops. So it allows them to plan that if anything should go wrong within the Confederation line, that they have a backup plan. And they can conduct sophisticated schedule interrogations now, whereas something that used to take them a really long time to do can be done very, very quickly because of the way TRACC works. And I'm going to show you sort of a little bit around that in the demonstration. And you can test multiple scenarios, you can rerun calculations really quickly. So that allows you to make decisions on the hoof if required. And it's multimodal, so it not only looks at public transport, it can look at car journeys, it can look at cycling, and it can look at walking as well, all at the same time. So it saved them significant staff time, and because it provides a standardized methodology in the way it runs the calculations, it delivers really robust evidence which stands up at inquiry. So I'm going to quickly run through a demo of TRACC. This I'll just sort of talk through. So here is TRACC. You've got your public transport networks, road networks, origins, destinations. You can even add in census data to look at wider population, your calculations, the results, and then there's a settings tab if you want to change any of the default settings. So I've already put some of the layers in, and I'm going to enliven those on the system now. So this is the public transport network. So this is the original public transport network for Chicago, and the road network as well. And if I just zoom in, you'll see the granularity. So we've got our underlying network. We now need some origins. So I've simply created a grid of origin points as our area of study. And these are 100 meters apart. So they represent people's homes. And we need some destinations. So we picked some hospitals. You can style all of these layers. You don't have to have them looking as they do. So we're going to turn these into a star. We're going to make the color more solid so they stand out. And then we'll put a label on them as well, I think, with their names so that we can see them a lot easier. So these are 20 hospitals that are in this particular area of Chicago. And there you will see. So we've got roughly 1.5 million origin to destination calculation. So we're going to run through a calculation. So let's do the public transport one first. So you effectively choose the day of the week and the time that you want to run your calculation. It gives you the default settings. We're going to set a 60-minute parameter, and we're going to just save it as before public transport. We'll save it for a future run. There's the summary, and it gives you all the information. You can go back and change that if it's not quite right for you. So we could just complete that, but we're going to do the walk and the cycling. So what you can actually do is generate all the reports first, and you'll see up the top there's a thing called batch calculation. And what that'll effectively do is do all of the reports in one go. So it saves you having to do them individually. So the walk time we're doing for 30 minutes. Click next. Again, the summary, finish. And then we do the same for the cycling. I think we skipped through that. So we'll do the batch calculations, and then the results will all finish in here. So let's have a look at the public transport, and let's look at a contour map. So we've got 60 minutes in 10-minute bands. We've created a contour. And so what we're going to do is move the destinations to the top. So you can move the layers up and down. You can switch them on and off. And here's all of the color bandings for public transport accessibility. I think what I'm going to do now is switch off the origin points so that you can just see, there we go, those bands. So this is showing the journey times to each of those hospitals for all of those origin points. So this is the before for the public transport. Let's have a quick look at the cycling. So this was 30 minutes. I've done this in 5-minute bands. And as you can see, the area is slightly reduced. Put the destinations back at the top. And we've now got the cycling journey times to each of those hospitals for each of the origin points. And we'll switch that layer off, and now I'll do one for the walking. As you're probably going to imagine, you've got much smaller contour maps with the destinations to the top. So that's a way of doing 3 very, very quick calculations. So what we'll do is we'll export one of these and have a quick look at it. They come out as a CSV file. And what they effectively do, and I'm going to try and pause it here if I can. It'll allow me. There we go. All the lines at the top are the metadata. So that is all of the information around the parameters that you set for your calculation. So down to line 39, that's all of the metadata, so that you can check that if at any time any of the results don't look quite how you want them. And effectively what you have along the actual report itself is the origin ID. Because I just created a grid of points, it's just numbered, but if you were using zip codes or addresses, then you would have the addresses in there. It puts in the origins X and Y coordinates. There are a number of destinations, and if you remember, this particular origin ID can get to the Swedish convent hospital in 54.5 minutes using public transport. Any of these reports that comes back with a value of 10 million means it didn't meet the criteria. So for that particular origin point, for destination 1, the Kindred Hospital, that was outside of the 1 hour parameter that we set. So you don't have to set a parameter, but it certainly helps focus the results if you need to. So we'll let that now run through. So as you can see, as you look down, you can see all the different times and those origin points where they fall outside of that 60-minute journey time. And what I've very quickly done is added in the cycling and the walking along with the PT road, so you now effectively for every origin point you have all of the modes for all of the origin points. So let's go back, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add in some proposed development sites. So we've just created some imaginary points, areas. I'm going to make them yellow so they stand out. And these effectively could be areas where new housing is going to be developed. So I've just created a few here, and what we're going to do, we're going to concentrate on the one that's down in the bottom left, the largest area. And what you'll notice is, looking at the public transport, that this area sadly falls outside of the 60-minute maximum, and actually is between 40 and 60 in the main. So it's poorly served. So what can we do? So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new service into the public transport network. So TRACC allows you to completely create a new service, new stops, service, route, timetable, all within TRACC. We've created a very simple service with about 8 or 9 stops. There we are. There's the details of them and exactly where they are from the previous ones. And once you've saved your route trip, you can then create a timetable, and you don't have to create it. You just pick the days of the week you want the route to do, when's the first time, when's the last time, and when's the last service, and however many you want per hour, and it will create a complete timetable for the public transit. So there we go. We now have our new bus route. So what we'll do now is we've rerun the calculation. We'll switch off the before, and we're now going to have a look at after. So we've rerun the same calculation, but we now have an extra bus route in. And as you can see, let me move the proposed developments up to the top, just so that if you move them to the top, then they become the top layer and they're the more visible. You can switch them on, switch them off, style them. And there you will see now that the proposed area is now covered by that change in the public transport. As we zoom in, you'll see that it's now covered, and it's actually improved the area around it as well. So you could even add in some census data to see what impact that has on the wider population. So that there's the old, there's the new. So I'm just flicking between the two so that you can see the impact that that's had just by creating a simple route. You can merge routes, create new routes, suspend routes, add census data if you want. And so that gives you at least a flavour for how TRACC sort of does its magic. You can make changes to the road network as well. So some examples of how TRACC has been used in the UK and obviously in America. Central governments and Department for Transports do a lot of their annual monitoring of access to key destinations. Certainly in the UK they do. If you're looking at major infrastructure changes, then you can evaluate population access to changes that you're looking to make to your infrastructure, whether that's road, public transport, or major building. You can analyse existing and proposed transport routes, timetable speed improvements, new services, even rationalising services if that's required. Development sites, transport access to sites is a big thing in the UK. We've got a massive house building programme, and a lot of the planners need to ensure that where they build these new properties, that there's good public transport and sustainable sort of travel and access to key services. So TRACC provides the ideal tool to be able to model that. The health service, certainly here in the UK, they're always looking at potentially closing emergency centres and access to hospitals, pharmacies and doctors, and TRACC has been used to look at the impact that has on the wider population by using census data, and can provide very robust evidence as to the reasons perhaps why you wouldn't want to close a particular centre. It can also help with or implement funding schemes. So if central government or local government have provided funding for a particular scheme, it could be car sharing, it could be a cycle lane, then TRACC will help with regards to modelling that and the impact it has. And it's been used for the promotion of active travel, travel plans for works and schools. Some of the schools in the UK use the walk zone maps to encourage more of the pupils, students and teachers to use walking, cycling and public transport as a way of getting to these places. And for office relocations, if a business is looking at relocating, it's got 2 or 3 sites that it's considering, TRACC's very good at analysing the travel times for all of the staff and all of the people that work for the company to see which provides the best solution for the company. And certainly in the UK, parking permit allocations are a big thing within our NHS because we have very limited space. And so TRACC is used as a way of being able to identify those that live the furthest away or can't get access to public transport and therefore need a parking permit. We work with a number of partners and clients. These are just a few of the many hundred that we work with. Some of those in this country, East West Gateway, as I talked about in St. Louis, is also a big user of our TRACC software. TRACC is used in America and Canada, New Zealand, Australia, parts of Europe. And so it's gaining sort of recognition for the work that it's able to do. All of the outputs from TRACC can be used in other GIS tools. We even use some of those tools ourselves to do some sort of post-processing if we want to look at producing some particularly useful interactive maps. And that is pretty much it as a run through. I appreciate it's been fairly quick. I've only shown you a fraction of what TRACC can do. We run other webinars that go into other bits of detail. If anyone's got any questions, I'm more than happy to take those now. As I say, this has been recorded, so if anyone did join a little late, please drop me a line at my email, or give me a call or text me, and I'll be more than happy to provide you with a copy of the demonstration that I've done this evening. So I'm just going to go to the questions and see if there's anything in there. We've got a question here. Training. Do you provide training on your TRACC software? Yes, we do. We provide a pretty comprehensive 1.5 day accredited training course on TRACC. There is so much that it can do, and to ensure that you get the most out of the software, we do provide a 1.5 days training. Now, before COVID, clearly that training was all done face to face. But what we've done is we've been fairly agile, and we've now developed some online training that will ensure that you get all the training that you would do face to face, but we're looking at doing those in a virtual environment. We can do them one-on-one quite easily, but we're also looking to do them for groups as well. And we're just literally at the point of being able to release some of our group training. So yes, we do provide full accredited training. What data formats can TRACC import? As long as it's got a geocoded reference, then TRACC can use it. So X and Y coordinates, latitude, longitude, easting, northings, zip codes, postcodes. As long as there is a geo-reference to the code, then it will be able to load it and use it as part of the work that you may be doing. Okay, any other questions? Can't see any at this moment in time. I'll just leave it for 30 seconds. Thank you ever so much for everyone taking the time out to join the webinar. As I say, if you look at our website, we run a number of webinars, some of them UK focused, some of them international. So if you have a particular interest, or if you want us to do a sort of one-on-one demo with you, I'm pretty sure that's something that we could arrange if you were really interested in finding out more about our TRACC software. Right, there don't appear to be any more questions. So I'll leave that screen up on for a few seconds and just once again, thank everyone for turning up. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please drop me an email if you would like to find out anything more. We have case studies. We've got lots of information that we can share about our TRACC software. So, don't be frightened. Just drop me an email. I don't bite, and I'll be more than happy to share any information that you may require. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions. So thank you very much for everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.